Welcome to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. I'm your host, Molly Watts. If you want to change your drinking habits and create a peaceful relationship with alcohol, you're in the right place. This podcast explores the strategies I use to overcome a lifetime of family alcohol abuse, more than 30 years of anxiety and worry about my own drinking, and what felt like an unbreakable daily drinking habit. Becoming an alcohol minimalist means removing excess alcohol from your life so it doesn't remove you from life. It means being able to take alcohol or leave it without feeling deprived. It means to live peacefully, being able to enjoy a glass of wine without feeling guilty and without needing to finish the bottle. With science on our side, we'll shatter your past patterns and eliminate your excuses. Changing your relationship with alcohol is possible. I'm here to help you do it. Let's start now. Hey there, welcome back to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. With me, your host, Molly Watts, coming to you from, it's almost a historic Oregon right now in terms of weather. Not quite fully historic, but we're getting there. We're approaching it with the number of dry days that we have had here in Oregon. Right now, we are expected to hit maybe 16, 17, potentially 18 dry days. And I think the highest number was back like in the 1800s, something like 27 in 1897, and we had a 26-day run in 1985. I don't think we're going to get there, but we are definitely approaching maybe the third driest January on record. And also it comes on the heels of having one of our wettest Decembers. So it's interesting to watch that. And it's also been I said last week was brisk. It's downright cold, but I know we're not the only ones this week in the country with cold weather. So for those of you that are experiencing some really cold weather in the Midwest and out east, my thoughts are with you. If you're listening to this episode in real time, you are listening on Monday, January 26th, and we are approaching the end of a mostly dry January here at Alcohol Minimalist. And if you've been listening throughout January, you know we've been kind of building a framework to not just for drinking less, but for understanding why behavior change is hard, even when we're motivated, intentional, and genuinely want something different. And we started with the fresh start effect. We talked about that on Think Thursday on January 1st. And then we talked about why a mostly dry January is enough. We've talked about why motivation fades, how the brain learns through reward, and why identity lags behind behavior. And last week we talked about how emotional freedom comes from responding instead of reacting. Today, we're kind of taking all of that and addressing one of the most painful moments that happens for people as they are working on changing their relationship with alcohol or any other really habit that no longer serves you. And that moment is when you drink off plan. Because when that happens, many people don't just feel disappointed, they immediately jump into a much bigger conclusion. This must mean I have a problem. Or this must mean I am the problem. And that conclusion doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from a deeply rooted cultural narrative about alcohol, and I want to talk about that. Let's name the logic that most of us have absorbed, whether we realize it or not. And it's a logic trap around drinking. It goes something like this. If alcohol is causing problems in your life, the answer is simple. Stop drinking. If you want to drink less, the solution is obvious. Just don't drink more than you planned. And if you don't do either of those things, even after deciding to, then something must be wrong with you. This narrative treats drinking behavior as a purely rational choice, as if the brain is a neutral decision-making machine that simply follows intentions. But that's not how the human brain works. And yet, this logic is so embedded in our culture that when people struggle to follow through, they don't question the model, they question themselves. They think, Other people can just stop. Why can't I? If I really wanted to do this, I'd do it. Why can't I just stick to what I said? And this is where shame really takes root, right? From a neuroscience perspective, the idea that you should be able to simply decide and follow through ignores how habits actually form and operate. Alcohol isn't just a substance. It is a learned response. Over time, your brain has paired alcohol with relief, with reward, with transition, with connection, and with decompression. And these pairings live in that lower brain, the toddler brain, the habit brain, and particularly in the basal ganglia, which is the part of the brain that is responsible for automatic behaviors. So when stress rises or energy drops or emotions spike, your brain doesn't consult your logical prefrontal cortex intentions. It defaults to what it knows works fast. And that doesn't mean your plan was bad. It means that your plan didn't account for how powerful those conditioned responses are. When people don't understand this, they assume the only explanation left. I must lack willpower. I must not be capable of moderation. I must need to be abstinent. And for some people, I want to be clear, abstinence is the right choice. It's the best choice. But the problem is when abstinence is framed as the only logical answer to any struggle without understanding what's actually happening in the brain. And this is really where perfectionism or all or nothing thinking kind of step in. Perfectionism says, if I can't do this cleanly, then I shouldn't do it at all. And one slip means I'm back at square one. If I were really capable, this wouldn't be so hard. Hey, just a quick break to talk with you for a minute about Sunnyside. You hear me talk about it on the show often, and it really is my number one recommendation for a mindful drinking app. People use this tool in my groups, in my classes, and they tell me all the time how much they really appreciate the fact that Sunnyside is a very positive reinforcement. And what I mean by that is that when you track your drinks, and let's just say you planned for one drink and you ended up having two. If you're honest and you track that second drink, you're not going to get a message that shames you in any way or reprimands you. You're actually going to get positive reinforcement for tracking a drink that you didn't plan on, and some ideas and some suggestions for maybe going and grabbing a snack or getting some water. Sunnyside is like having a coach in your pocket, and I love that. You can try it for a 15-day free trial. Go to www.sunnyside.co/Molly to get started today. Psychologically, perfectionism isn't about high standards. It's about avoiding shame. And when perfectionism meets alcohol, something really dangerous happens. Instead of asking why a moment felt hard, we conclude who we are. I drank off plan because, and it becomes, I can't trust myself. That conclusion shuts down curiosity. And curiosity is the only way to create lasting change. And this is why I teach something in my programs called the off-plan plan. Because off-plan drinking is not a diagnosis. It is not proof that you can't do it, and it is not a character assessment. It is information. It is data. It is your brain telling you something about that moment overwhelmed the tools you had available. And that's not failure. That's a design issue. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? We want to ask, what was I feeling? What was the cue? What thought made drinking feel like the easiest option? What support was missing in that moment? this is a radically different way of relating to yourself, and it is grounded in both neuroscience and psychology. The off-plan plan has two core principles. The first is compassion. Compassion means refusing to turn a moment of challenge into an identity verdict. It sounds like, that was hard. No wonder I reached for what's familiar. I can acknowledge this without punishing myself. I'm still committed even though this wasn't perfect. Compassion keeps the nervous system regulated, which is essential for learning. The second piece of the off-plan plan is curiosity. Like I just said, curiosity is where change actually happens. Instead of collapsing into, I failed, we investigate. What was the situation? What was I thinking right before I drank? What did I believe alcohol would give me in that moment? When you do this consistently, patterns emerge. And once you see patterns, you can design better support. This is how the brain rewires, not through force, but through awareness and repetition. So let's redefine commitment. Commitment is not never slipping. Commitment is not never doubting. It is not never feeling pulled toward old habits. Commitment is staying engaged after a misstep. It is choosing learning over judgment. And it is continuing forward instead of starting over. The people who succeed at long-term change are not the ones who never go off plan. They're the ones who don't quit on themselves when they do. So here is your reflection for this week. When I drink off plan, what story do I immediately tell myself about who I am? And then, what would change if I treated that moment as information instead of evidence? You don't need to decide today whether you'll be abstinent forever. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to stay curious. That is where real peace is built. Now, if this approach resonates with you, I would love for you to check out Drink Less Success. It's my 30-day self-paced program that includes the off-plan framework, along with neuroscience and mindset tools to support lasting change. And of course, it's without shame, without rigidity, or those perfectionist all-or-nothing thoughts and extremes. And you can learn more about it at mollywatts.com/drink-less-success. All right, that's all I have for you this week, my friends. I hope your Mostly Dry January has been going great. And if you have had some off-plan moments, I hope you take time to look at them as data and really lean into asking yourself the questions that I talked about today. You have got basically the rest of this week to make it great for a Mostly Dry January. Make those plans. Choose how you want to show up. Until next time, choose peace, and I will see you on Thursday. Thanks for listening to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. Take something you learned from this week's episode and put it into action. Changing your drinking habits and creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol is 100% possible. You can stop worrying, stop feeling guilty about overdrinking, and become someone who desires alcohol less. I work with people in 2 different ways, and you can learn about them over at my website. Go to www.mollywatts.com/workwithme, or reach out to me directly. Shoot me an email, molly@mollywatts.com. We'll jump on a call and decide what might work best for you. This podcast is really just the beginning of our conversation. Let's keep it going. If there's one thing I know, it's that change is way easier when you stop trying to do it alone.